revealed how a Half-Apache scout discovered the hidden worth of a girl called Too Ugly at 12. Eli felt the weight of disapproval hanging in the dry air of the New Mexico town like the fiery sun overhead. As a Half-Apache scout, he thrived on the land's secrets, hidden trails in the sweeping desert, the whispers of the wind over ancient rocks. But his heart caught on the sharp edges of societal judgment. The townsfolk's eyes followed him, drawing lines through the dust of tradition, lines that often excluded Mary, the girl they cruelly called Too Ugly. Navigating the complex terrains of his own identity was hard enough. He didn't know how he would navigate hers. The townspeople said what they thought, their words sometimes seamless puffs of air, sometimes knife-sharp blades. Laughter from his school friends sliced through the serenity of the landscape whenever they spotted Mary. They jeered, masking their own fears about being different by targeting the girl who carefully adjusted her thick glasses as if they were a shield. Eli's fists tightened at his sides whenever he witnessed the pain in her timid smile, a smile that faded too often, leaving behind the untouched beauty of her unacknowledged spirit. Eli was torn. Why were Mary's looks even a subject worth discussing? What merit lay in tearing down a person just because they didn't meet narrow standards? He recognized Mary's inner strength in quiet moments shared far from the judgment, conversations alive with dreams spoken beneath the expansive, star-freckled sky. Her storytelling sparked something in him, a flicker of hope buried deep within his own heartache. But the louder he became in supporting her, the more his friends, his supposed brothers, pushed away. He could hear their words now, echoing with mockery, their laughter haunting him. The struggle to choose loyalty over morality played out like a slow-motion train wreck. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Eli stood at the crossroads of his own integrity, longing to reject the hurtful words of his friends, but shackled by years of camaraderie forged in laughter that felt more like betrayal now. The thought of losing the friendships he had known since boyhood gnawed at him like a festering wound. He craved a connection that made him feel brave and noble, something that brought light into the oppressive shadows of his heritage. But standing by Mary, a girl banished to the margins, would he forfeit everything he knew? The townsfolk grew restless and silent whenever they caught Eli and Mary on the outskirts, whispering beneath their breaths about how her ugliness would reflect poorly on him. Every glance, jibe, and whispered breath broke him a little more. A shame ignited, spilling into fears that he might not have the strength to confront the judgments burying them as individuals. And it was in this moment of turmoil that Eli felt the gnawing fear of potential consequences reaching a breaking point. Would their voices be enough? Or would he and Mary become radiant targets of ire, left bruised and broken in the battle that sought to strip their worth? As the storm brewed, Eli's heart whispered a terrifying truth. Some truths demand to be fought for, yet could leave scars far deeper than the ones already etched within. Eli's resolve was a fragile ember flickering against the winds of doubt. As he paced beneath the spindly trees lining the schoolyard, he felt each lash of whispered ridicule biting against his skin like a swarm of angry hornets. He had spent enough time dwelling at the edge of indecision. It was time to act. But how? Somewhere beneath stifling layers of fear, he sensed a burgeoning resilience, a deep-seated determination to carve a different path, not just for him, but for Mary. He replayed the moments spent with her in the stillness of the desert, the way her laughter would offer an oasis in a landscape dominated by harsh boundaries. The evocation of those shared tales pushed against the walls of his mind, demanding to be remembered. Could he use that same storytelling magic? What if he showcased Mary's talent in their class, compelling the others to see her beyond her appearance? The idea flared brightly within him, invigorating his will. But would he be able to confront the scorn of his peers if they reacted poorly? Eli's heartbeat raced as he rehearsed his proposal in the periphery of his mind. The mere thought of casting her into the light made him tremble with both excitement and fear. But facing that fear was an act of rebellion against the silence that had too long enveloped them. To acknowledge Mary in front of the class meant to stand up not just for her, but also for himself, challenging a culture that constrained both of them. However, that thought turned heavier as he recalled the hollow laughter of his classmates, the sting from their jeers cutting deep into the soft flesh of his vulnerability. What if they turned it into mockery instead of applause? That was a risk he couldn't ignore. Questions spiraled, and he quickly forgot the clarity the idea had initially brought him. The embers faded to ash, leaving behind the dull ache of doubt. Determined to forge ahead, he approached Mary the next day at school. Her slumped shoulders and downcast gaze sent a pang through him. Here was a girl so vibrant within, yet so encumbered by her outer shell. He took a breath and began speaking, each word built on the very foundation of those magical moments they shared under the stars. "Mary, I think we should do something together," he said, the urgency in his voice forcing her to meet his gaze, her dark eyes wide with a mix of surprise and suspicion. "I want the class to hear your stories." Her expression shifted from surprise to disbelief. "Eli, no, they'll laugh. They always do." The tremor in her voice twisted painfully in his chest. "They might," he admitted, a tremor in his own tone. "But if we don't try, nothing will change. You have a voice. It matters. We both matter." A silence fell around them, hanging heavy like the heat of the sun on a scorching day. Eli watched as Mary processed his words. He could see the internal struggle, the flicker of hope battling against the fear of exposure. "What if I fail?" she whispered. "Then we'll fail together. But what if you succeed? Imagine their faces when they realize the truth about you, about us." The challenge lay thick in the air, igniting resolve now more potent than before. Yet, as he spoke, the gnawing fear returned. What if the townsfolk's mockery turned to ire? What if they turned on him for casting Mary in the spotlight? He felt worry creeping like a cold finger down his spine, but he pushed it away. It was a step toward the person he could be, stepping out of shadow into light, even if it meant facing darkness head-on. Mary hesitated, but Eli could see the glimmer of potential in her eyes, the first spark of belief. For the first time, he felt ready to stand against judgment, to test the fractious bonds that tied him to the opinions of others. "Will you join me?" His words were firm, unwavering, a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. Mary shifted her weight, uncertainty still etched on her features, but something had begun to stir within her. Would she embrace it? As he awaited her answer, Eli understood this was not just about showcasing talent. This was the beginning of an essential journey toward understanding their worth in a world that continued to dismiss them. And in the depths of that silence, a decision loomed, one that would irrevocably alter the contours of their destinies. Would Mary find the courage to rise, and would Eli be strong enough to support her no matter the cost? Eli held his breath, the air thick with anticipation as he awaited Mary's response. He could see the conflict etching lines across her forehead, a storm of emotions swirling just beneath the surface. Would she dare to step forward with him, or would fear snuff out their shared flame of hope? As if feeling the weight of his gaze, Mary finally met his eyes, her uncertainty wavering. "What if they boo me off the stage?" she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. Each word seemed to puncture Eli's heart, echoing the very fears he wrestled with himself. "Then we'll take bow together," he replied, trying to infuse strength into his voice. "That's better than hiding away, don't you think? You have a chance to show them who you really are, Mary." Something shifted in her expression, a flicker of resolve sparked by his steady gaze. "Okay," she said finally, almost imperceptibly. "I'll try." The weight of that choice settled on Eli's shoulders like armor. There was no turning back now. Facing the very ridicule they feared meant they had to prepare meticulously. Every detail counted. They began to meet every afternoon after school at the library, creating a sanctuary where Mary could tell her stories free from judgment, where each word held the power to reshape her identity. As Mary spoke, Eli became captivated, weaving her narratives into a tapestry of vibrant imagery. He was struck by the depth of her imagination and the poignancy of her experiences, an artistry layered with both humor and heartache. Underneath the painful moments lay a resilience he never fully recognized before. Days turned into weeks, and with each session, Eli felt himself change. Clarity came slowly, but surely. The shadow of self-doubt that had loomed around him began to recede. Each tale Mary shared infused him with purpose, making him question his own story just as much. Why had he spent so long allowing fear to dictate his decisions? As their bond deepened, he found an unexpected ally in her. Her bravery challenged him to confront his own vulnerabilities, pushing him to stoke the embers kindling within. But together on this fragile path, they faced inevitable obstacles. One afternoon, a group of peers wandered into the library, their laughter ringing like a bell, a warning echoing in Eli's mind. He was assembling notes for Mary's performance, but the reality of their mockery crashed over him as they pointed and laughed, making snide remarks about Mary's past. Eli's instinct was to protect her immediately, a fire igniting in his chest. But as he looked at Mary, he saw her fighting against her own instincts to retreat. He sensed in her the same flutter of determination he felt. "Don't look at them," he whispered fiercely. "Focus on the story. You're stronger than their words." Though her face flushed with embarrassment, he saw her resolve churning beneath the surface, channeling the core of her spirit. Eli understood that she needed that moment to take the power back, to shine irrespective of the narratives others created. No matter what they say, don't let them rewrite your story. That week, the pair prepared feverishly, honing their performance for the class. Each narrative felt like a stepping stone, strengthening both of them with every rehearsal. Eli no longer felt like a flimsy ember. He felt like a flame, a nascent beacon ready to defy the darkness of prejudice. The day of reckoning approached, clear and bright, as they stood before their classmates. Eli could feel the electric energy pulsating in the room, a mix of excitement and trepidation swirling within him. "Remember, we do this together," he reminded Mary, his voice steadying her as they faced the audience. But little did they know, the real test was only beginning. As their performance unfolded, a familiar jeer emerged from the back of the room, a cold reminder of the very shadows they were trying to escape. A clamoring voice dared to disrupt their moment as it resonated through Eli's core. "Watch out! She'll scare you away!" Eli's heart dropped, and in that moment his resolve surged anew. The time had come to face the scorn that lay in wait. How would he respond to ensure her voice transcended the echoes of doubt? As he prepared to confront the jeer, he felt a fierce determination well inside him, setting the stage for the ultimate test of their courage. Eli's breath hitched as every pair of eyes in the room swung towards the source of the jeer, all interest suddenly fixed on him and Mary. It felt as if the laughter coiled around them like a snake, constricting their freedom and muffling their voices. He could almost sense Mary's hesitation, the shudder of her confidence caught in the grip of that sneer. But something inside him burned. This was not just her battle, it was his too. Let them talk, he thought desperately, his mind racing with strategies, with plans to take back control. He turned slightly, angling his body toward the voice, determined to maintain a united front with Mary. You know what scares them, how you can outshine their ignorance. Let's show them the truth. Eli's whispered encouragement was fierce, resonating within the small sphere they had created, reminding her of her strength. With renewed intensity, Mary took a deep breath, her eyes locking onto Eli's, grounding them both. He could see the fight igniting within her. He felt it in himself as well. Their vulnerability collided with newfound courage, a sudden temperature shift in the room. Eli grasped the microphone, his hands shaking. The urge to lash out was strong, to let the frustrated anger spill out as words. He paused, concentrating on Mary instead. You know, he said, his voice clear and steady, projecting over the murmurs, the best stories come from those who faced the toughest battles. His gaze swept over their classmates, noting some familiar faces now filled with curiosity rather than scorn. Mary's not here to fit into some mold. She's introducing you to a world you wouldn't know unless she shares it with you. So instead of booing, how about you really listen? The room fell silent, but the tension remained thick, each student grappling with a mix of surprise and intrigue. Eli noticed a smattering of nods, flickers of possibility. He turned back towards Mary, his heart racing in sympathy. They hadn't necessarily won the crowd yet, but they'd cracked open a door. Go on, he urged softly, stepping back as she took command. This is your moment. As Mary began weaving her first story, Eli stood by her side, fortified by their connection. With each word that flowed from her lips, the initial hostility of the room transformed slowly into attention. Her voice trembled at first, but the more she delved into her truths, the more powerful it became. Her narrative was rich and textured, an authentic unveiling that shimmered with vulnerability and insight. For the first time, she was reclaiming the very words others had used against her, reshaping them into symbols of strength instead. Eli could see her pass through layers of apprehension into a space where her truth prevailed, connecting with the audience in ways he never anticipated. The confidence blossomed within her, radiating outward. Each laugh, each nod of recognition from peers across the room reinforced the shift, a reclamation of dignity that had been stripped away. He found himself lost in her storytelling, thrilled by the authenticity she brought into that space. As she finished her narrative, silence lingered for a heartbeat. Then the applause erupted, heartfelt and unrestrained. The sound washed over them, melting any remnants of fear. But amidst the cheers, a shadow flickered through the back of his mind. What if the jeers returned? Eli felt an ache of foreboding settle in his chest. They had emerged victorious in this moment, but the battle beyond these walls loomed ahead. Mary stepped down from the makeshift stage, her face illuminated with triumph. But Eli's heart still beat erratically. He needed to talk to her, needed to address what lay at the heart of their shared journey. As he reached for her hand, he paused, a realization striking him. Could they galvanize this moment into something bigger? He suddenly envisioned a new path, an opportunity to inspire others who felt trapped by the words of a few, to give life to stories that had been silenced. "Mary," he said slowly, excitement brewing in his tone, "what if we didn't stop here? What if we started something ourselves? A way to share stories, our truths, to empower others? What if we could challenge them? A platform? What do you think?" The flame of possibility ignited in Mary's eyes, but amidst the excitement was a flicker of hesitation. The challenge around them felt imminent, stirring a new current of tension in Eli. Would they dare to ride this wave, or would fear inhibit their growth once more? In that charged silence, a new horizon unveiled itself, the next step toward unforeseen challenges already looming on the path ahead. Eli's pulse raced as he watched the spark of excitement wane in Mary's face. Despite her earlier triumph, he sensed a retreat, a familiar hesitation that dimmed the possibilities they had just envisioned. This moment, intended to be a stepping stone, now felt heavier. He needed to prepare her for the battles that lay ahead. "What are you afraid of?" he asked, his voice steady yet probing, cutting through the flourish of applause that still echoed in the room. "You felt the power of your voice tonight. You shone." Mary's gaze flicked away, tracing the floor as if it held the answers. "It's not just about one moment, Eli. I've been called ugly for so long that sometimes I can't separate the words from who I am." Her admission cut deeper than Eli expected. He had seen her shine, seen her stand boldly in front of their peers, but this vulnerability revealed the cracks that still ran deep. It was an invitation for him to step closer, to hold that space of honesty between them. "You're not those words, Mary. None of us are. You just shattered part of that illusion up there." "But what happens next?" she countered, her voice barely a whisper. "Do I have to keep fighting?" The weight of her question landed on Eli, propelling him to consider the reality of their situation. He was propelled forward by his desire to uplift her, build upon this newfound connection, but doubt rumbled beneath the surface. Could they truly create a platform, turn this triumph into something larger than themselves? "Maybe we don't know what tomorrow brings," Eli stressed, shifting closer, "but if we don't try, we'll never know. We could reach people who feel just like you did, alone and misunderstood. We could help them find their voice." The words tumbled out, fresh and fervent, drawing a cautious nod from Mary. Though her expression remained mixed with uncertainty, he saw the flickers of determination dancing at the edges. "But how do we do that? I've never built anything meaningful before." Eli's mind turned over the possibilities, landing on her fear yet again. He could sense this intricate weave of self-doubt. It threatened to unravel all the excitement of the evening. "We start small," he said, contemplating how to guide her. "Let's begin sharing our experiences on social media, build a following, create a safe space for voices that matter. We can craft the narrative together." He watched as Mary considered it, the gears of her mind beginning to churn. There it was, the stir of curiosity mixing with the heady scent of possibility. "I've only ever felt vulnerable exposing my story," she admitted. "What if no one cares or responds badly?" "Everyone has a story," Eli countered, his instincts guiding him. "There are people who wish someone would understand them, who want to support one another. Imagine if your story resonates with one person. That's a difference worth pursuing." Her eyes met his, a spark ignited once again in that expansive space between them. In that moment, Eli recognized a transformation unfolding within her. This was the seed of empowerment sprouting against a field of doubt. "Okay," she finally breathed, that determination finding its ground. "Let's try. But I'll need your help, Eli. I don't want to do it alone." "Never alone," he affirmed firmly, feeling the warmth of her trust settle beside him. The weight of their ambition didn't vanish. It felt heavier now, anchored by the stark shadows of their fears. Yet within that area of uncertainty was an electric energy, the promise of venturing into uncharted territory. Challenges loomed like storm clouds on the horizon, but Eli sensed they stood at the cusp of something transformative. As they walked hand in hand out of the room, the laughter and applause still thrumming behind them, Eli's mind turned towards the immensity of their endeavor. Would this budding project be significant enough to withstand immediate pressures? The questions ate at him, restless within his mind. "I can feel something coming, Eli," Mary said, squeezing his hand, her voice steady. "Something that could be truly powerful." "Then let's get started," he replied, his heart racing with the thrill of embarking on a bold venture. But deep down, he wondered how they would navigate the inevitable pushback. The moment of truth was approaching, and he couldn't shake the feeling that their journey had only just begun. But before long, a shadow crossed their path, a figure emerging from the depths of the gathering crowd, eyes locked on Mary. The air grew thick as Eli recognized the challenge about to unfold. "Looks like someone wants to say something," Eli muttered, instinctively tensing. The confrontation was imminent, and he braced himself for what would come next. Eli's breath caught in his throat as he recognized the tall figure approaching with an air of menace. Mark, a man from Mary's past who had not shied away from verbal assaults. The laughter and applause faded into an uncomfortable silence, the electric anticipation of confrontation crackling in the air. "Great job tonight, Mary." Mark's tone dripped with sarcasm, his smirk betraying the disdain he held. "Did you even believe the lies you were spewing up there? Or were you just trying to sell something no one's buying?" Eli felt anger surge within him, a mix of protective instinct and resentment. He wanted to step forward, to close the distance between them and shield Mary from this onslaught of venom. Yet something in Mary's composure caught his attention. Instead of yielding to despair, she stood tall, quivering, yes, but resolute. "Why do you care, Mark?" she replied, striving for steadiness in her voice. "You've made your thoughts clear, but I'm not here for your approval anymore. I'm here for myself." Eli couldn't help but admire the fierce light in her eyes, the courage stirring within her like a rising tide. This moment, the confrontation, could either fortify her resolve or drive her back into her shell. He quickly scanned her posture, searching for signs of retreat, but it was Mark's mocking laughter that unnerved him more. Ah, the new Mary, standing up for herself. How uplifting, Mark sneered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Too bad it doesn't change what's always true. You're still the same person, just pretending to be more than you are. Newsflash, the world doesn't change with your whimsy." That jab might have struck hard last year, but Eli could see the lenses through which Mary viewed Mark's words were shifting. It was no longer personal. It was a test she hadn't anticipated. The fight was transformative. Eli watched as Mary took a deep breath, as if drawing strength from the very ground beneath her feet. "How about you, Mark?" Her voice hung in the air, calm yet challenging. "How does hiding behind insults make you feel powerful? Or is it just that you're projecting your own insecurities?" Eli marveled at her boldness. In that instant, she had stepped beyond her self-consciousness, turning the tables on her tormentor, resurrecting the agency she thought had been lost at the hands of others. But he wondered, was this realization of her strength enough to deflect Mark's shadows? "I mean it, Mary," Mark said, a hint of menace creeping back into his voice. "Why make a fool of yourself? Embrace what you are, ugly inside and out." Eli felt a surge of frustration, but in Mary's eyes he noticed a spark. She was not the girl defined by Mark's words anymore. She was evolving before him. "I've been ugly, but I'm not letting that define me. You can't touch what you can't own." The conviction in her statement momentarily stunned the crowd, and Eli sensed a shift. The supportive murmurs from onlookers began to filter into the silence. For the first time, he could see people rallying, whispering affirmations in solidarity. They could sense her journey, the rebirth from someone who was once meek into a force to be reckoned with. With every exchange, the energy in the space around them thickened. A transformation manifested, not just for Mary, but for Eli as well. Should he root for Mary's boldness or prepare himself for the fallout? Each word exchanged resonated with internal struggles Eli faced too. The confrontation mirrored his fears. Mark, visibly flustered, spat, "You think you can change anything? Good luck with that." "I'm done with luck," Mary replied fiercely. "I'm ready to fight." She turned back to Eli, her expression alight with determination. Eli felt that determination wash over him like an awakening tide. Perhaps they would fall hard amidst the challenges, but there was no mistaking the strength they were drafting. As the interaction ended, the shadows drawing back on Mark's part, Eli turned to Mary, ready to affirm their bond in this newfound strength. But suddenly, a chorus of voices erupted around them, each one resonating with emotion. It struck Eli that Mary's experience could birth something far-reaching. The foundation of their mission was being laid in real time, coursing through the very heart of confrontation. Yet, even with this shift toward empowerment, an unsettling doubt flickered within him. How would they harness this revelation into something meaningful? The turning point had surfaced, yet Eli couldn't ignore the impending storm. They were now drawing attention, and with attention came scrutiny. What awaited them as they took the next step into this uncertain realm where vulnerability met conviction? The confrontation had granted birth to their fight, but what would it require to sustain it? The moments after Mark's departure felt charged with an unexpected energy, a fusion of triumph and uncertainty that pulsed in the air like an electric current. Eli sat beside Mary, who still radiated that fierce determination. Her earlier confrontation echoed in his mind, reverberating along the walls of his own insecurities. He wanted to commend her, to express how proud he was, but doubts tangled in his thoughts. What if this newfound strength was fleeting? What if backlash followed? "Mary," he began softly, searching for the right words, "you really stood up to him. It was amazing." Her eyes shimmered with an unreadable emotion. "I wasn't sure where that came from," she admitted, her voice almost a whisper. "I just felt so tired of letting him define me." Eli felt a weight shift within himself, as if her vulnerability had pulled him along on her journey. He wanted to be brave, too, to push through his own shadows as she had. "Then what now?" he asked, prompting the conversation toward a deeper exploration of their paths. Mary considered the question, eyes drifting toward the shifting patterns of the crowd. "This isn't just about Mark, is it? It's about all the things I've held back, the fear of being seen for who I truly am, or who I could be." She paused, furrowing her brow, a manifestation of her developing internal conflict. Eli could see the walls she had built around herself start to come down, brick by brick. "I need to keep this momentum, this strength," she continued, "but how do we ensure it lasts? I don't want to go back to being that person who crumbles." Eli nodded, drawn into her contemplation. "You won't, Mary, not anymore. But how do we keep pushing ourselves? How do we translate this into something more than just a moment?" The question hung between them, heavy with significance. A myriad of answers swirled in Eli's mind, each one probing the depths of his own challenges. He realized then that he too was tethered to a past driven by self-doubt. While he had supported Mary in confronting Mark, he couldn't help but feel an imbalance. His aspirations remained unvoiced. Maybe we start small, Eli suggested, igniting a spark of idea as they shaped their path forward. We can create a plan, build on this strength together. What are the things we can do to confront not just others, but ourselves? Mary met his gaze, and a hint of a smile broke across her face. I want to share my story, Eli. I want to use it. We could share it? His question reflected the incredulity laced with eagerness. What do you mean? Maybe create a vlog or a blog. Document my experiences. Help others see that they're not alone. We could do it together. It could amplify our voices. Sharing could give it weight, purpose. Her passion ignited in the air, visible in her shifting posture and fervent expression. Eli's heartbeat quickened, excitement mingling with fear. As appealing as the idea was, vulnerability beckoned another confrontation, one with his own fears of inadequacy. But what if we fail? What if no one listens? Mary's expression steadied, reflecting an understanding forged in her own burgeoning resolve. Then we create something that matters to us, regardless of who listens. That's the heart of it, isn't it? To find worth in our stories. Eli nodded, the sheer power of her conviction washing over him again, but beneath it lay the tremors of uncertainty. Could he truly step into this with her? Would he find the strength he sought? Let's do it, he finally said, though doubt still nibbled at the edges of his confidence. As night began to fall, colors darkening and fading, the two of them ventured back into the very thick of their realities, the intricacies of vulnerability still surrounded by uncertainty. Eli found himself realizing that the act of sharing could be as daunting as it was liberating, but it was a crossing point he felt compelled to approach. With the thrill of possibility ahead, as well as the shadows lurking behind, Eli asked her a final question, one that hung heavily in the air. Are we ready for what comes next? Their determination flickered beneath the surface, but deep within lay the knowledge that their journey had only just begun. Could they truly embrace the unknown, or would it become a testing ground for everything they had fought to reclaim? The tension was palpable, signaling the precipice of their next confrontation yet to come. Uncertainty loomed like a fog, wrapping around Eli as he contemplated their shared venture. The streets bustled with a chaotic energy, yet his mind felt anchored in a singular focus, the prospect of unveiling their stories to the world. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. What if external validation remained forever elusive? Days passed in a whirlwind as Eli and Mary committed to their plan. They selected a platform, drafted mission statements, and sketched the outlines of their stories. Each session together became an exploration, crafting their narratives with thoughtful care. Yet, amidst the collaborative excitement, Eli's inner voice churned with hesitancy. Could he truly offer his own story without crumbling under the weight of judgment? One evening, seated on the balcony overlooking the cityscape, Eli stared at his laptop. The cursor blinked tauntingly on the blank page, like an unresolved argument. He had shared parts of himself with Mary, but to spill those thoughts onto a page felt more invasive, more raw. What would he say? How would he measure up against the strength Mary had shown? His heart raced with the implications of sharing not just experiences, but vulnerabilities, bearing the scars of his past. "You okay?" Mary's voice cut through the tension. She leaned against the balcony railing, a gentle frown gracing her forehead. Eli offered a weak smile, the bravado he crafted for her dissolving into vulnerability. "I just don't know where to begin with my story. I don't think it's as compelling as yours." Mary stepped closer, her determination sharp as glass. "Eli, it isn't a competition. It's about authenticity. What you think is unworthy could be the very thing that resonates with someone else." He felt the intensity of her words seep into him, mixing with his doubt. But you've been through so much. I've had my fair share of challenges, but it feels trivial compared to what you've faced. With a calm intensity, she replied, "Your experience matters. Everyone has their struggles, and maybe what you see as trivial is exactly what someone needs to hear. Don't diminish your journey." Her faith in him felt like a lifeboat amidst stormy seas, yet the fragility of her perspective unsettled him. Where she emanated conviction, he felt fractured. The thought of putting pen to paper stirred lingering insecurities. How would he articulate his feelings without discrediting their weight? Would admitting weakness diminish him, or could it ignite a transformation? As the night deepened, silence stretched between them, a silken thread laden with unspoken truths. Mary's gaze was resolute, unwavered by his reluctance. "You've already taken the toughest step by wanting to write. Imagine someone else reading your words and realizing they aren't alone in feeling lost." A flicker of understanding ignited within him. Perhaps this was more than an act of sharing. It was an invitation to embrace his identity amid self-critique. "Okay," he exhaled, his voice steadier now. "I'll do it. I'll write something." With the decision came a surge of anxiety mingled with anticipation. He had no roadmap, only the resolve to navigate the uncharted territory of his own mind. Mary beamed, the spark in her eyes reviving his determination. Yet, as they settled back into the pace of normal life, Eli felt the creeping weight of expectation. Each evening he returned to his laptop. The courage he had mustered seemed to dwindle alongside his conviction. Was it enough to be vulnerable and unrefined? When would he stop debating and start crafting the narrative he longed to share? That internal struggle culminated when a message flickered on his screen. "Hey, what are you working on?" It was from Mark. A simple inquiry or a taunt cloaked in concern? Reflexively, Eli's heart raced. The shadows of his past surged, forcing him to confront the pulse of humiliation he thought he had buried. Was he truly ready to dive deeper, not just into the words, but into the truth of who he was? In that decisive moment, as hesitation wrestled with the urge to reclaim his narrative, Eli knew that the time had come to face the questions he had avoided for far too long. Could he dismantle the fear that marked his past? Was he ready for the unfolding story of his personal revelation and the resistance that awaited? As Eli faced the looming challenge, the depths of silence broke beneath his fingertips. A moment of reckoning was upon him. What awaited on the other side of his words felt both liberating and terrifying. But one thing was undeniable. He was ready to confront the reflection that had haunted him for too long. With a new urgency rooted in vulnerability, Eli prepared to embrace the storm, unable to shake the feeling that his next entry wouldn't just be another story. It had the potential to redefine him. What would emerge once he broke free from silence? Eli sat at his laptop, a tension coiling tightly in his chest as his fingers hovered above the keys. The outline of his story swam in his mind, fragments of memories swirling like eddies in a river, some sharp and vivid, others blurred with time. He could feel the weight of every decision pressing down on him, each choice about what to reveal or conceal becoming a physical sensation, a knot in his throat. He recalled Mary's voice, steady and resolute, urging him to embrace authenticity. Authenticity. It was a potent word, filled with both promise and peril. Could he truly lay bare the contours of his being? Would revealing the scars of his past, a childhood riddled with bullying, the nagging self-doubt, moments of failure, open the floodgates or drown him in the torrent of judgment and shame? Eli's heart raced again. The wavering uncertainty, a familiar companion, returned. He thought of Mark's simple message. What would he say if he acknowledged his struggles? Would Mark see him differently? Lesser, perhaps? The fear of rejection twisted like a vine around his intentions, strangling the budding desire to share his truth. He glanced out the window, where the city skyline loomed against the dusk, a tangle of lights glowing defiantly in the darkening sky. Each bulb sparkled with stories untold, and for a fleeting moment he wondered if blending into the background was the safer choice. No one would scrutinize the shadows he wielded if he stayed silent. The idea was enticing, but he crushed it almost immediately. Something deeper compelled him to write. It wasn't just about his experience. It was about articulating the journey taken, from the self-loathing that had marked his adolescence to the slow, persistent emergence of self-acceptance. He craved connection. Perhaps by exposing his vulnerabilities, he would forge empathy. Maybe his voice could echo with the thoughts of someone grappling with their own pain, allowing them to feel seen in a world that often felt isolating. He took a deep breath, tasting the briny tang of uncertainty that lingered beneath his resolve. But as he exhaled, that resolve started to solidify like clay hardening in the kiln. He would show the world, not just his successes, but his scars too. Opening a blank document, Eli allowed his fingers to convey fragmented thoughts, a landscape painted with shame and triumph. He typed of the time he sat at the edge of the playground, taunted by whispers of "too ugly," and what it meant to surface from that. The ghosts of his past began to unravel under the pressure of his keystrokes, transforming his tangled memories into a tapestry of growth. As he poured his heart out, a primary theme emerged: his undeniable desire to be understood. Each word he wrote felt like a defiance against the boy who once shrank under cruel taunts. With every sentence capturing a struggle, he unearthed strength he scarcely realized he possessed. It was transformative, this act of writing. It tethered him to his humanity. Hours passed, the rhythm of the keyboard becoming a meditative beat. Somewhere along the way, Eli felt self-doubt begin to ebb, replaced by a fragile yet unyielding momentum. He could feel the tides of a deeper awakening flow through him, the cathartic release of revelation empowering him to unearth hidden depths previously shrouded in shame. He paused, scrutinizing the reflection in the screen. The face staring back appeared more resolute than it had in ages, a hint of pride glimmering in his eyes. Eli realized he was not merely crafting a narrative for others, but constructing a pivotal stepping stone toward his own acceptance. In sharing that vulnerability, he was clutching a torch to illuminate the darkest corners of his identity. Suddenly, a text dinged from Mark again. "Loving the updates. Can't wait to see what you've been working on." Eli's heart surged. Perhaps he had allies in this journey after all. With newfound determination, he fell back into his writing, weaving his past into a framework of hope. But as he did, a shadow of apprehension loomed over him. What would happen when he finally released his story into the world? In that moment, Eli grappled with a realization tinged with fear. Every story demanded a reader. Would they receive him as he hoped, or would they open wounds further? It was a precipice he stood at, teetering between light and shadow, eager yet terrified to leap. As the cursor blinked in the silence, he felt a surge of anticipation, aware that the moment of truth was still yet to arrive. His words would soon take flight. Where would they land? What awaited in the realm beyond vulnerability? Eli felt a sense of exhilarating resolve as he clicked publish and watched his words soar into the digital ether. The act of sharing his story felt monumental, a decisive shift pulsating through his veins, candidly uprooting the insecurities he had harbored for too long. The silence that enveloped him post-publication was a paradox, both freeing and terrifying. Would the world embrace his confession? Days trickled by, each one filled with gut-wrenching anticipation. Eli oscillated between excitement and dread, his phone a constant source of torment as he awaited responses. But deep inside, he finally understood that the act of writing was cathartic. It had transformed his past pain into a narrative of resilience. Mary remained a steadfast ally, pouring her energy into their budding online platform. She supported him through every moment of uncertainty, sharing updates and insights on the very stories he had once deemed insignificant. The profound impact of her encouragement fortified his resolve, reminding him constantly that their voices held the potential to inspire others caught in similar cycles of self-doubt. Then, the morning came when Eli opened his notifications and saw a familiar face, a comment from Mark, cautiously optimistic and engaged. "Eli, I'm really impressed by what you wrote. It takes guts to put yourself out there like that." Eli's heart raced. The scrawny boy who had cowered beneath rejection was somehow being acknowledged. This gesture became a powerful confirmation that his vulnerability had resonated with somebody, creating a bridge over the turbulent waters of doubt. As days turned into weeks, responses started pouring in. Messages from strangers flooded the platform, each recounting personal tales of struggle and triumph, a collective tapestry of resilience woven together by shared experiences. Eli felt nursed by this sense of solidarity. His story had not just sparked recognition within himself, but resonated with a community yearning for connection. It was providing a future for him too. Encouraged by the responsiveness to their platform, Eli and Mary decided to hold their first virtual meetup, creating an open forum for storytelling, an opportunity for others to voice their past narratives. The idea seemed daunting, but also electric. The thought of sharing not just their journeys, but facilitating a space for discourse on overcoming obstacles was equally thrilling and empowering. As the day approached, Eli could feel the electricity in the air build. He also felt the tremors of old fears bubble beneath the surface. What if it flopped? What if he faced scorn again? The shadows of his past nudged at him persistently. But now, like a sinewy vine, hope coiled around those doubts, offering a foundation to rise above them. During the meetup, as people began to share their stories, Eli watched Mary transform into a beacon of strength, her assured presence guiding others through their vulnerability. In that moment, he realized the magnitude of collective storytelling. Each account layered upon one another served as an illuminating testimony, transforming raw vulnerabilities into illuminated triumphs. When it came time for Eli to share, he felt a surge of confidence. He stood up with quiet fortitude and recounted the moments that had haunted him, but emphasized the growth that blossomed from those very challenges. Seeing the participants nodding in sympathy, their eyes attuned to every word, he felt a surge of power wash over him. Not only had he confronted his demons, he had embraced them, allowing his journey to forge a path for others. After that session, a transformative energy lingered in the room. Eli spoke words of hope, of newly cemented conviction, words that apologized for nothing and boasted the fragility of growth. As the final comments rolled in, he realized that they weren't just echoes of support, they were connections, a binding thread of human experience vibrating in resonance with one another. He saw the power of bravely facing judgment and insecurities, and come out the other side, not just as himself, but as part of a community. The night enveloped him in warmth, the same warmth that had once fled in its absence, replaced by a newfound sense of self-worth. No longer an isolated ember drifting through the night, but a contributing spark to a larger flame. Months later, reflections poured in from all corners of the digital realm. His story, now intertwined with countless others, had started a ripple effect, leading to a blossoming community of storytellers unearthing their truths, bound by a fearless push against insecurities. With Mary at his side, Eli learned that it didn't matter how the winds of judgment blew. They learned to embrace it. They shifted narratives, reconstructed dialogues, and reminded others that inner beauty shines brightest in adversity. Each day unfolded new opportunities to share and engage, fortifying their mission and their bond. And as he stood on the balcony overlooking a vibrant sunset, Eli felt a swell of pride mix with fulfillment. What had begun with a struggle against self-doubt now flourished into a movement of empowerment. This tale was no longer just his. It had organically grown into a collective journey. In this moment, Eli stood solidified in his identity, confident, recognized, and transformed. He became devoted to one singular triumphant truth. Together, through storytelling and authenticity, they had not only conquered their fears, but proved to the world that everyone deserves to be heard, and everyone's story is worth sharing. Now it's your turn to dive into a world full of emotions and incredible transformations. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support truly makes a difference. Comment below your reactions and theories about what you just witnessed. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.